Hello, you wonderful human. Welcome back to Meant to Move. I'm Vanessa, your host. This week, I welcome back my partner, life partner, Michael, and we are going to delve into recipes, healthy recipes, nutrition, and a few free resources that we think are really useful for you. So the idea behind this episode is that I wanted to give you something practical to change the way that you think about a recipe book or recipes. And there's a lot of content on social media about food, and I follow a lot of it. Michael follows a lot of it, and we spend a lot of our days going back and forth, tagging each other in various recipes of amazing food ideas. And occasionally we'll make something that we see off Instagram. But 9 times out of 10, what we're making is a derivative of a physical recipe, something that we have had either from a magazine or from a cookbook. And science shows that our brains take in more information when we have a physical copy of it, not when we're viewing it on a screen, not when we're just seeing it. And so we're really going to delve into these free resources and a couple of people or cookbooks that you can follow if you're a complete beginner, or even if you're a seasoned professional and you want to eat a little bit healthier and you want to understand what to look out for when you're searching for recipes, how to view if they're healthy for you or not. And I say healthy for you because we all have different needs and different wants and different desires. So it's important to make sure that you're just understanding how to interpret these recipes, these serving suggestions, these macronutrients that they give you. And Michael is just a genius at it. So let's let him take over. If you found this episode helpful, I would love it if you could leave a rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach more people who are looking to transform their health and wellness journey, and I really appreciate you for your support. Hey, Mickey husband. How are
Hi,
you?
Nancy.
We're trying something a little different. We won't get into the technicalities of why we're trying something different, but here we are. We're sitting, we're here, we're good, we're podcasting. So today I wanted to bring something a little bit more practical for everybody, so that we've been talking about fibre, we've been talking about protein and good hacks to add in. Let's talk about some good free resources, ones that we use pretty often that we can bring to people and not only help them with good, really easy recipes, but also just things to watch out for and like pros and cons basically. And so do you want to show to the camera and describe what it is mostly we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, cool. So we just thought this is Coles magazine from May 2025. So it's a free resource. So obviously full credit to Coles for all the content and recipes and stuff. I thought it'd be really good to go through something. Well, Ness actually suggested it, but to go through this to just show like what's positive about it and probably what's a lot less positive about it, to put it mildly. So we can kind of just. Do you want to just get straight into it?
Let's go straight into it, because I think we'll talk about maybe the first thing that people might be thinking is, big supermarket, lots of bad press. However, most of us still going to be doing a big chunk of our shopping at one of the big supermarkets, right? So I think one of our biggest reasonings is why we use this is because use what you can get for free. Like, there's actually some pretty good content in here.
There's a lot of good content. And so basically the magazine is more or less like a giant advertisement, which is fine because they're making money off this being free to the consumer. But a lot of things you pay for, you're still advertised to heavily. So to me, I think it's actually a really nice resource. Like, they're usually quite in depth. I find there's a lot of good variety of recipes as well. So you can just kind of take ideas from it. And a big thing that I have is you don't need to follow recipes to a T at all. There's no need. So edit things as you go, use your instinct, use your taste, take things away, swap things, whatever you need to do.
And that's kind of what we'll go into detail about pretty much with this whole podcast. The other thing that I was going to say about this is, now that I've completely forgotten, I'm going to have to come back to it. So we will come back to that point when I do remember it.
You can probably edit that out. So anyway, so first up, I just literally had to flick through again yesterday through obviously. And this recipe, you probably can't see it that well. Ness, you're going to put some.
I'm going to clip it.
Yeah, cool. So it's a Curtis Stone recipe, so that's usually a good start. He's an excellent chef. Coconut milk braised pork shoulder. They list the serves, the prep time, and then the cooking time, right? So um, obviously, look at the prep and cooking time if that matters to you. To me, the timing of it's irrelevant. I'll spend as long as I need to in the kitchen. I know it doesn't apply to everyone, but like, so this says it's a 6 with a 2 kilo pork shoulder roast, right? Boneless pork shoulder roast. So over 6 serves, they list the macros down at the bottom. This is just for the pork dish as is, with like a few bits of, say, cucumber and maybe some onion and like coriander, which coriander is just like is just a herb, so I don't count that for macros personally. It's just a waste of time. What I would say with this, so per serve it says 621 cal, 66 protein, 36 fat, 8 carb, 5 sugar, dietary fiber 4 grams, right? So, but you're not just going to eat this by itself. You're going to eat this with something. It might be a salad. Most people are probably going to eat it with a lot of rice and or bread.
Or mash.
Yeah, or mash or something. So it's just to remember to take those things into account. A lot of the recipes do kind of try and, I think, hide that side of it where it's like this isn't like the recipe itself, I think sounds great. I haven't cooked it, but I think it is very much one of those ones where it's like, okay, if you split that into 621 calories, by the time you add all the other bits you're going to have with it, you're probably looking at about absolute minimum 800 cal dinner. That's if you're putting 50 grams of dry weight rice with it only. But realistically, you're going to want some veggies and stuff with it. So we're really looking upwards of 1,000 calories for this meal. And that's over 6 serves. So if you're cooking for a family of 4, you need to remember there'll be 2 left over. But again, 6 serves is actually quite a small amount of servings for that much meat. Realistically, if you divided that by 10, you'd still be having 200 grams raw weight shoulder of pork, boneless. So which is more than enough for a serving. So there's just more things you can do with it. So you can actually stretch that further. So I think they've done themselves a disservice personally with that too. So this is where I think they could actually think things through a bit better, because you could be like, wow, feed a family of 2 for 5 nights or something. Not that people are necessarily going to eat the same dinner 5 nights in a row, but they could just make it probably more palatable on the serving sizes.
I think you're touching on a point here that's really important for a lot of us, because we look at, if we started to look at calories or macros, often the serving sizes are so disproportionate in different recipes, and there's no standardization, basically.
They're extremely variable.
Correct.
Right? They're extremely variable.
And so because your knowledge of macros is super handy, you kind of broke that down really nicely, but let's go over that. So you said 2 kilos of pork shoulder, boneless.
Mm-hmm.
If you split that over, what was your maths again? Because me and numbers.
I said 10 serves, so 10 serves would be 200 grams each. So even, look, you could split it over 12 serves, to be honest, and you're still getting upwards of 160 grams of raw weight pork per serve, which is going to give you more than 30 grams of protein. So yeah, well, it will, because so if you basically doubled the amount of servings from the same exact recipe, that brings it down to like 310, 311 cal. And then when you add all your veggies and things with it too, you're getting a lot more. You can add a lot more fiber, and you're getting a more complete meal. For me, I think it would actually make sense to list that as like a 12 server personally, or 1 kilo of pork.
Yeah.
That would be enough, and you could still use everything else as it was. The rest of the recipe, you could halve it, but you wouldn't have to. I'm looking at it as I'm speaking. So for me, it would make a lot of sense to either use half the amount of pork or just spread the recipe twice as far.
This is a really interesting point, and I think that when you look at a recipe, you find ones that you can kind of visualize and go, this is quite heavy, or this is a pretty good one for macros. But this is really what we're going to go into today, is how you can start to dissect these recipes and understand if they're useful. And so that's a really good first tip. So to get a serve of protein, which you're saying is about 30 grams for a meal.
You want to get about 30 grams in per meal ballpark.
Raw weight, that is about 100 grams?
No, for pork, it would be about 100. 100 grams would be about 20 to 22 grams. So you're looking at about 150 gram for most meats.
Cool.
Chicken breast, you're looking at 100 grams raw weight.
Amazing. Cool. So that's a really good starting point there. And I think that what you said here is so important. So that, it sounds like a great recipe. Coconut milk braised pork shoulder. I'm all for it. But there are no vegetables in there.
Not really. There's one cucumber over the whole thing,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And there's a bit of red onion, right? So no, there's no, and like cook it. And again, this isn't hating on the recipe. I still say I actually think it's really good. It's just not giving you a realistic scope of what you're going to eat, or probably going to want to eat as well.
Yep.
So for me, I think this is where they could do themselves a better service with this. But like, look, honestly, like I think, no, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, from that recipe, what veggies would you add veggies into the recipe, or would you just say make like a veggie side?
You can make a veggie side, or if you wanted to add veggies into it just to make your life easier, you could just hack up a couple of big eggplants into big chunks because it's being cooked for like
Yeah.
3 hours or something. So they will just go nice and soft and they'll just suck up all that good flavor from everything else there. You could chuck potatoes in it as well.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, mushrooms, anything like that. If you wanted to do a veggie side, you could do like a nice big salad with it. Although if it's more a wintry recipes, I mean, salad I'll still eat. But if people aren't thinking about that, even just grilled vegetables next to it, yeah. And rice if you wanted it too, right? Like I'm not saying don't have rice with it. It's just more. I'm always trying to look at ways to add more vegetables and fiber to my diet, as I think everyone's probably got by now.
No, but what you're saying then is that that recipe, which sounds amazing and something that probably a lot of people would be like, oh, yeah, I'd want to make that. Now you've just made that a healthier weeknight meal that has a really good distribution of veggies, fiber, protein, and fat. And you will be full and satisfied from it. And not because you had to have 4 serves out of the 12, because you were hungry because you weren't getting all that other stuff on the side,
Yeah,
basically.
correct. And like this is a good one like for leftovers to like take to work for lunch as well. If you wanted to get like not just like a small roll to have with it and then you take a bunch of veggies and make it into almost like a burger kind of vibe. I mean, you take less of the sauce with it then, but the point is you can do a lot with it. So yeah, look, I mean I mean that was the first recipe that kind of sprung out to me in the magazine, and I think there's a lot of good about it, but I don't think they give a full picture of exactly what you could be getting from it.
I like this. So I like this. This is one thing. It is a weekly meal planner, and
They
I think,
basically give you a shopping list.
yeah, yeah.
Which obviously, again, like this is a sell, and I don't say that in a bad way, but like, yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, I've had a look in detail at this because sometimes they give what they would call like a base recipe, and sometimes they don't.
Oh, that's later in the magazine.
Yeah, yeah. So the base recipe for the meal planner, though, you can use that base recipe across 2 or 3 of the meals, which is super convenient if you don't like cooking every night. Because what that does is that allows you then to have like kind of a subtle base, and then different nights of the week you kind of like add in different flavors or different bits and pieces, and it creates a completely different meal. And that's really useful. I think if you struggle to eat the same thing again and again, which we can talk about down the track, but I highly recommend base recipes because that's super useful, I think.
Something relatively neutral that then you can move across different cuisines if you're attached to a cuisine tasting a certain way. I think that's super useful. Yes.
But it's also what the weekly meal planner does, and we try to do at least a list of recipes that you're going to make during the week. It takes away a bit of decision fatigue.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with food, like, because we've got so much good access. We have incredible access to food, whether it be at the supermarket, local shops, and also like then you add in shit like Deliveroo, which,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, anyway, I won't get into that. But I mean, like, honestly, like the food environment and the food landscape is actually so complex, as in like the amount of decisions you can make in a day, don't have to, I suppose, but can make in a day. And I struggle with it a lot of the time too. Like, more about if I don't have an idea about what I'm going to cook, I can get really lost and bogged down and I can spend way too long thinking about it, which is why I prefer to have at least a basic plan.
Yeah. And which is why we also, I would say maybe even 50 weeks out of 52 have some kind of meal prep.
Yeah, I'd say
because it completely removes that decision fatigue from at least one of your meals
I have
a
it.
day.
If I'm home, I have it. Like Ness might take a week or two off during the year while we're home. If I'm away overseas, I don't care. I'm going to go and eat all the good things and like try new things. But like at home, even when Ness doesn't necessarily want it, I always have some degree of it just because it makes my life a little bit easier.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, is that plan.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you got here?
So next one, this is one of the recipes I think is not great. I mean, it sounds delicious. Cheesy rarebit pasta. So rarebit, Welsh rarebit is like basically toast with a load of cheese and like beer and stuff. Like, I'm not actually explaining it that well, but it's delicious. Cheesy, hearty, like I guess classic comfort food. We can go into comfort food later. But basically, so this says it serves 4 people and it's trying to tell me it's a meal. So for 4 people, they've got 180 grams of raw weight pasta. So, okay.
That's not a lot.
No, which is like, whilst I think that's actually a good idea for the amount of pasta for a lot of people, 45 grams per serve, but it's not a huge amount. And then it's the other ingredients are butter, flour, cream, beer, Worcestershire sauce, mustard, cheese, and then it says mixed salad leaves to serve, and then it's got crispy breadcrumbs on top, which are butter, breadcrumbs, parsley, and salt. So basically, this is going to be a very small dish. Like, it's not going to be voluminous. That's, if you like eating like that, that's okay. But for me, that's a problem. I prefer to have more volume, I think, as we've discussed before. And then you look at it, so per serve, assuming the macros are right, this is another caveat. The macros aren't always that accurate in here. Most of the time, they're pretty accurate. I check some of them sometimes, or I just do like, when I say faux macroing, I just add it up real quick in my calculator thing. My Fitness Pal would be a better description. And 742 cal, 18 protein, 52 fat, and then you got 48 carb and 2 dietary fiber. So realistically, you're getting, like, fat's not evil, but like you're just getting a shit ton of fat. You're getting a little bit of protein, and not much of it is actual complete protein, because you're only getting the good protein that you're getting really is only coming from the cheese, and then you're getting 2 grams of fiber, which is not enough. So you might feel full after it, but it's just not a complete meal. And I think this is one of those things, like, I'd actually say put that as 8 serves and have a tiny bit of it next to a few other things.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't sound that exciting, but or this is just maybe a once-off thing. It's not like, this is not a weeknight dinner to me. And they kind of sell it as like a prep thing.
Yeah.
Because there is an advertisement for their, like, they've got like a Curtis Stone range of glass containers at the moment. So it's fine. Like,
They're
as
useful.
I said, the advertisement side of it's fine. I'm not criticizing that. But what I do think is the recipe really isn't like a meal prep one that's great to take to work or something for a lunch. Personally, this is more like a treat meal. And if you're going to have one this small, okay, if it's that small, that's probably okay. But you're still going to need to get a ton more fiber and protein through your other meals throughout the day then. And more important, vegetables probably.
Like, I think this is an important one to bring up, is that we're not disregarding the fact that you can have a meal like that during the week.
Mhm.
But if you're trying to be balanced, if you're trying to eat well, you will need to then stack your other meals full of vegetables, full of fiber, full of protein, because you're not getting enough from that. And that serving would be quite small, but it would be very dense in macros, basically. It's just,
Yeah.
it's a super heavy meal.
It would be filling, I think, to be quite honest, as well, because of the cream, because it's so fatty. But I'd also you're just not getting enough from it unless you're eating around it for the rest of the day. And again, there's nothing wrong with doing that. So if you're going to have a really, really vegetable heavy breakfast and dinner with enough protein, and you want that for lunch, or it doesn't matter what the breakdown of your meals is, as long as you're getting it throughout the day, it's actually not a bad thing. But it's, again, it's just to be aware of it. So, like, I'm not trying to demonize people. Like, eat pasta, eat fucking cream if you want to, like, but just be conscious of what's going into it, like macro wise, and just of your overall daily diet.
Yeah.
But sorry, no, I was just, because, like, I wanted to touch on the one next to it. So firstly, it's a curry recipe, so I'm in. I mean, I'd make a different curry recipe, but this is a really easy one. So it's chicken masala. You can see the picture of it there. Looks yummy on rice, because chicken masala is yummy. Basically, it's 4 serves that they've put it as. This doesn't include rice, I will say.
The macros don't include
No,
rice.
they do not, but it's 301 calories, 30 grams of protein, 17 fat, 7 carb, 3 fiber. So outside of the fiber, it's an excellent, like, but like, it's basically just chicken, right, with a few other bits. So you don't expect to have a load of fiber. But what I'm saying is, like, that is really good to then, if you have that with a load of, like, if you have that with like some sweet potato mash, like, mix the sweet potato mash, like, when you mash a sweet potato, instead of adding, say, tons of butter, maybe add yogurt to it and a little bit of butter if you really want the butter in there. And then you're going to get a lot of fiber from the sweet potato as well. And it's going to be a really delicious meal. I mean, serve it on rice, just don't have a huge amount. But then I would say have vegetables next to it.
Could you add like a can of beans or something into the
Yes.
actual
That's a good idea.
yeah.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And there's a third of a cup of thickened cream in it. Cream's not the devil, but it's just extremely heavy. So if you wanted to actually lighten the macros of it a bit, to have other things in the meal, you could get rid of the cream, so 80 mil of it, and just put 80 mil of yogurt in there instead. And it'll actually add a tiny bit. That'll add a little bit more protein as well. And it'll also, in my opinion, taste better. I like the sourness added to dishes like that. And then it gives you room. So you could then maybe put like a handful of cashews on top to replace those fats. And you're going to get more nutritional value out of it as well. But again, like if you want to make that like 80 mil of cream over 4 servings, 20 mil each, that's actually very low.
Yeah.
But it's just always like, there's just practical ways you can move things around.
Then we're always thinking about this from like a waste perspective as well as a nutrition perspective. So the additional reason that we wouldn't add cream is because cream tubs never come in a size that's useful. And so for us and for anyone who wants to be less waste and to actually utilize their ingredients really well over a week, if you're going to be using cream in a meal like that where you're only using 80 mils of it, this is where a little bit of forward planning works really well, because you can find another recipe that's, you know, a little bit different that also has a small amount of cream, and now you've used much more of that. It's not going to go to waste. It's not sitting there in your fridge just spoiling because you haven't figured out what to use it for, or then you don't just dump it and like whip it up and just have it for the sake of having it.
Or you end up chucking it out, right?
Yeah, exactly, which is worse.
Yeah. So basically, like, again, like this is like just another easy example of like, that was like the chicken masala, I think is a good recipe to start with. And then you add things to go with, like you said, you can even just chuck a tin of beans in with it and then serve it on rice. That's a good start. You could just chuck veggies in with the chicken masala as well, or on the side. Yes. So next up, this is just like a whole page of like recipes, and what stuck out to me here was I thought they were all actually pretty decent because they're all fairly macro friendly. Some of them you need to add things to. So like cheese French onion soup with cheesy croissant toast. Okay, probably not the healthiest thing, but like let's say, so it's for 343 cal, 14 protein, 19 fat, 26 carb, dietary fiber 6. Not terrible, right? So if you just had some protein, something a bit more protein rich with that, probably fiber as well, a bit more fiber, that's a decent meal. Like croissants, okay, not the best thing, but that's a fun meal and it's still not terrible. So I think that's a really good way to look at it, because like every meal doesn't have to be perfect, because I think that's silly to try and eat. Well, I don't eat like that, and I'm sitting here preaching. So I don't think it's reasonable. So I think that's actually not a bad little meal if you then just want to have some other sort of protein with before it, after it, next to it.
I think this is important. And again, like you said before, you could have that meal, choose to have that meal for dinner, but then ensure that you had lots of fiber, lots of protein in the meals previous, because you know that by the time you get to dinner time, you want something that's a little bit more comfort food. And we're going to talk about this now. And I think that this is where a lot of people have trouble when it comes to eating a little bit healthier, because they think that a recipe like that, you know, with croissants, or what was it? Croissants and
it was
onions, French onion soup
with cheesy croissant toast.
That sounds decadent.
Yeah, it does. And that's the whole point. But this is what I mean. This is what makes that a great resource, because it sounds decadent and it's not the healthiest meal you can eat, but it's not terrible either.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where we think that the word comfort or comfort food traditionally would be like a full-blown French onion soup that's really creamy, really heavy, like very fatty, and then you're dipping a croissant into it, basically.
Like
or
a big croissant, and they're using mini croissants in that recipe.
And I think the point that you want to make is that comfort is really about what makes you feel good, not necessarily about that has to be this decadent thing.
Yeah, so comfort food is really just food that gives you comfort. And People often associate it with certain things. They associate it with like cake, pastries, stewed foods, curries, things like that, and always really rich and decadent. Whereas, like, for somebody like myself, my main comfort food would be a curry, an Indian curry made from scratch. And generally, they're relatively healthy. And the reason it is a comfort food for me is because, I mean, I'll just put it out. Basically, I grew up in an unsafe household, and so I don't have many happy memories of it. And we didn't eat much Indian food at home ever. So I taught myself how to cook Indian food because I love spices. Like, so I make them all from scratch. I think I mentioned before, you can see the India cookbook just behind me there.
That's not the only one.
Yeah, but the one that's 1,000 Indian recipes, and there's about 4 there. So, but my point being is like that brings me comfort because it's something that I've given myself since leaving a home like that, now in a safe home. So therefore it brings me comfort to make food like that because I have no negative associations with it. And it's something that the way I look at it is like I've gifted myself to be able to cook like that because it's such a, like it's my favorite, Indian food is my favorite food. And so therefore that becomes comfort. Now, if it's a big decadent Indian feast, that's also comfort. But I have curry, like if anyone sees my Instagram, like this morning I had an egg curry for breakfast. I had it yesterday as well. And like it's quite actually a simple recipe. It's fucking fantastic though. And like it's very healthy. So yeah, anyway.
But I think this is a super important thing because comfort for me is nostalgia, and quite literally the opposite reason. Food was a way to show love in our household, and I grew up in a family of excellent cooks around me, from my mother to my grandmother to my Zia, and
you as well, and your sister.
Myself, my sister, and there was always an abundance of food. And so for us, like I'll use an example. On the weekend, we went to the farmer's market and we found kind of wild broccoli. It's a very similar type to an Italian Roman style broccoli called rabe. And it's awesome. Like all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is really cool because my grandmother used to cook with it and my Zia cooks with it. And so
Zia is an aunt, by the way.
Thank you. And so for me, this week I've just taken a couple of stalks and put it into a couple of meals. And every time I eat it, it's like, this reminds me. I think I said it to you the other day, the smell of it cooking. I was like, this smells like Zia's house.
Yeah, said, no, you actually said this smells like Zia when you had it yesterday on your omelette. And I was like, oh, that's good. Yeah, go on.
But that, if, that's comfort. And that's not necessarily potentially what a lot of people would associate with comfort, but it's because that brings back a memory of someone giving you a meal that you really enjoy, that you really loved. That meal for me ended up being pasta and broccoli, which was this Italian type of broccoli. But the flavor of it is really what brought back those memories, and it makes me happy eating it. So there's definite ways that you can create your favorite meals, your most comforting meals, and turn them into something that you can have week to week if you follow these kinds of rules, or not even rules,
just kind of just like a structure to work around and just to consider. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect every time. So but don't be like the biggest thing for me is don't be afraid to go off recipe. So many people are so afraid to go off recipe. When I first started cooking, when I was a teenager, I would not go off recipe. And then, but it is a good way to learn though. So if you are worried about going on a recipe, it's like staying onto the recipe exactly how it is. My advice would be to get like a cuisine specific cookbook, say like an Indian, Japanese, doesn't matter, whatever it is, and cook the shit out of it. Cook like 30, 40, 50 recipes out of it and cook a broad range of recipes and try and start to understand like how the flavors work together. Because once you understand how the flavors work together, then you can go like I don't know, this might go really nicely with like when you're eating pasta or something, you might be like, oh, this like a certain spice might go really nicely with this. And then you can kind of try it. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Try it a different way if you want to again. And like that's how I've learned how to like I can free cook curries still to be Indian flavored, but I can free cook them without a recipe. I like using recipes, so I still use them a lot. And when I kind of just make random recipes, they often turn out really well. There's once in a while they don't, but Like I think I'm very capable at combining different cuisines and flavors. And once you start to understand, but it's about understanding flavor.
Mm.
Once you understand what flavors work together, and also challenge what flavors work together, as in if you think they work together, then they work together. If someone else doesn't, they're wrong and you're right. To you, no, you are. Like if you like it, you're right. If they don't, then okay, they're right. They're not wrong. But to you,
Yeah.
it's still correct. Even if they say, if someone says you're wrong, that doesn't work together. Like, well, I like it. It does.
Yeah, for sure. Like the other day, you were dying for spaghetti meatballs. You're making the sauce and you made it relatively traditional initially. And then you're like, this needs miso.
And brewer's yeast.
And brewer's yeast. Brewer's yeast is a great hack, by the way, everybody, for flavor, for like umami intense flavor. Really, really great. But you threw them in, and for all the Italians listening, do not cringe. It's excellent. It's so good. And honestly, it was some of the best spaghetti meatballs. And that was a Monday night meal for us.
It was a Sunday
night.
It was Sunday. It
was
but yeah, no, the point is, right, and like that's not groundbreaking either, add miso to pasta. I'm fully aware, but so many people would be like, oh, but it's not Japanese. Because like there's a whole Japanese cuisine called waifu cuisine, which is like Japanese Western fusion.
Yeah.
So this is where people miss that you can just add something, and don't be afraid to like just try it. Specifically, if you're worried what other people think, if you're cooking it just for yourself, that's the best time to try. I do most of my heavy experimentation when I'm cooking for myself. And then if it works, Ness usually gets a text saying something like, holy fuck, I need to make this for you. We're making it, like, you need to tell me when you want it because I need to make it for you.
Yes, very true. I really liked your comment about get a cookbook that like encompasses a cuisine. And I think that that's really useful because I would never have really thought of that before. And I've seen you go through like your stages of going through like different almost like cultures of cuisine, basically. And I think it kind of started with ottolenghi and then some like Middle Eastern, like we had like a bit of a Middle Eastern flair there for a while.
It started for me when I first started cooking. It was more an Italian food because I wanted to learn how to make, not from scratch, but just how to make. I'd buy pasta itself, but I wanted to learn how to make pasta sauces from scratch better. Like the original way I started cooking was I used to like, I think I mentioned this before, but a Master Foods 4 cheese mix, and I didn't get it made often enough for me, so that's how I taught myself how to cook. You literally had like butter, water, and like milk. And I just used to want it cooked down for ages too. So the sauce basically became almost dry and like stuck to it. That was how I really liked it because it was really intense. And I used to just cook that a lot. And then it just blew out from there basically. But yeah, like I've done a lot of like Middle Eastern cooking.
You're gonna have to turn back around and say that one again.
I've done a lot of Middle Eastern cooking, a ton of like Indian, bit of Sri Lankan, a lot of Italian, a fair bit of Japanese, I'd say a bit of Chinese,
Korean a little bit,
Korean a fair bit, quite like there's tons basically. Few African recipes, African groundnut stew, look that recipe up. It is fucking banging. It's basically like peanut butter curry. It is a great time. That's on the heavier end of things, so have that as more like a treat. It's not unhealthy, it's just you're going to be down at about 1,000 calories min, I think, with that one when you have the serve.
And I think a lot of people, if you're not big cooks, if you're a bit nervous, we really, really think one of the best people to start cooking with is actually Jamie Oliver. Shout out Jamie Oliver. We love you. Like, honestly,
not endorsed, but willingly would be endorsed.
Yeah, 100%.
Like he is a food god. The negative press he gets is complete bullshit, in my opinion.
Look, and I held up his cookbook there, which is 5 ingredients. And the reason I held that one up specifically is I think that's his most simple, easy to follow. Like I think that's a Bible for simple, quick cooking for people who want healthy meals. And funnily enough, we talked about this the other day. I actually read the introduction and like the behind the scenes stuff because I hadn't read it before. And his ethos around food is so good. It's about, healthy most of the time, moderation, getting lots of different ingredients, being seasonal, enjoying your food, and then treating yourself when you can. But then also he really switches his treats around so that they actually become healthier at the same time. Like he's really good at sneaking in ingredients that are slightly better for you so that your treats or your comfort food become a little bit better for you. And the ethos with the 5-ingredient book is that it's so easy to sub in different ingredients and add in different ones as well.
He's big on like Jamie Oliver's big on like you don't need to follow recipes to a T as well. Like the biggest thing I've learned through my own experience with cooking is that follow your instinct. If you instinctually think that you want to add something to it, just or not put something in there, just do it. Just do it, because every time I don't do it and afterwards I'm going, fuck, I should have done that. But the 5-ingredient Jamie Oliver book is really good because it's literally 5 ingredients. All right. Caveat is salt, pepper, olive oil, vinegar, things like that don't count as an ingredient because if you don't have them in your cupboard, well, get them in your cupboard. They're super important. But the point is they are very, very accessible recipes. They're low maintenance. And like, honestly, everything I've cooked out of there has been amazing. And they're really good bases. Like I'll look at a recipe in there. I'll try it usually the first time as per recipe. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I want to add all these things to it. Because again, like time in the kitchen to me is irrelevant. But if it is relevant to you and you don't want to have too many ingredients, that is a great, great cookbook. And it's a great cookbook even if you're very experienced, I think, because it's got a really wide range of cuisines and it's just friendly. The way it's written, the way it's laid out. We can't show you pictures because unfortunately there'd be copyright issues with that. And also like I don't want to upset Jamie because he's the man. But yeah, just a bit, just that is a really, really excellent resource if you want to chuck like 20 or 30 bucks at something like that. I'd highly recommend it.
Yeah, I second that wholeheartedly. I think that it's that's definitely one of the go-tos among his other books. But that one, I think that some of his most recent ones are probably really, really easy to follow. To finish up, because you had a couple more things in here. If people are looking at a recipe and they are unsure whether it's a complete meal, or they're not entirely sure if the macros are useful or how it's split up, what are some of the things that you're looking for that help that recipe to stand out as like a good healthy meal?
Firstly, I would just look at that you are getting enough protein in it. So if you understand where your protein's coming from, which I know can be difficult, but obviously meat, dairy, green peas, legumes, things like that, you're going to get decent amounts of protein. Well, meat a lot, and obviously fish I put in that same category. So I'd look to make sure that it has protein in it. I would think, is there fiber dense things in there, i.e. fruit, vegetables, legumes, quickest way to figure that out. And like as well, if it's got things like nuts in there, they tend like nuts are very healthy. It's just really, if it's got like 200 grams of nuts, that's a lot. But like that's kind of where I look. And that's actually like you segued that very well, not on purpose, by the way, because there's a recipe here that I really thought was useful. So you might not be able to see it properly, but it is lamb with pea and avocado hummus. So firstly, it's not actually hummus. So before anyone gets mad at me, Coles wrote that, not me. Hummus is absolutely not that, but it's the idea. So it's like it's lamb with pea avocado puree dippy thing under it, right? So basically, the macros of this per serve is 617 cal, but it's 41 protein, 39 fat, 7 saturated. So if anyone's interested in saturated fat, it's very low saturated. It's 19 carb, 6 sugar, and 15 fiber. So 15 fiber for me would be about just over a third, just under a third of just over a third of what I would minimally want a day, which is 40 grams, but that's minimum for me. And I think that's a really, really great thing because this is the ingredients, for example, lamb leg steaks, olive oil, lemon juice, garlic, cherry tomatoes, Lebanese cucumber, coriander, mint, lemon. The pan avo hummus is peas, so frozen peas as well. Super cheap, super accessible, super affordable. Avocado, chickpeas, tahini, garlic, lemon juice, olive oil. So like there is not one ingredient there that I could sit here and pick an issue with personally, as in to say like, oh, it's bad for you, or like not that healthy. It's dairy free and gluten free. So that means it's accessible for most people. Obviously, if you're vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian, it's not accessible for you. That's fine. You would have known that straight away when I said lamb. But it's quite I find this a very accessible meal for the amount for most people. And you're going to get, it's going to be really delicious. One, it's going to be really filling. And like, you're just getting a great amount of like vegetables and legumes just by default, really good fats from your olive oil and from your avocado. That's the word I'm looking for. And then you're getting a couple of herbs in there too. So like, it's just like, to me, that sounds like a delicious meal. And I look at that and I'm like, it's really, for like a better way to put it, piss easy meal to make. You basically blitz a few things up together, chop a couple of bits up, sear your lamb, chuck it on a plate, and you're done. Like, this says 15 minutes prep and plus standing and resting time, but it's fine. 10 minutes cooking. So you're realistically looking at 25 minutes active work for this to get something that's super healthy. It looks really nice because you got that vibrant green, like green
Hummus.
not hummus. Yeah, I just think it's, I can't say, I just can't see anything wrong with that meal. And if you really, really were worried that it was too high calorie, like, which I personally don't think it is, you could halve the amount of olive oil, which is 60 ml in the hummus, and then just add water or more water or lemon juice to it. So
Yeah.
there's ways around it.
And the actual segment itself that this falls under is full of veg.
I didn't even say that.
Yeah. And so basically each recipe that it comes under is actually telling you how many serves of veg is in that. So I think that recipes that are plant-based, vegetarian-based, whatever you want to call them, when Coles and Woolies have segments like this is actually the money. Do you know what I mean? This is where stuff like this is super useful for everyday households, because now, like, they're actually telling you what you're getting out of it as well.
What's useful about this isn't a plant-based segment, because plant-based suggests no meat, no dairy. So this is actually not vegan, which I think is handy because most of the population is not. No hate on veganism, but like, this I think is really useful for that reason, because it's really actually showing that you can still have enough meat in your meal and then still get a ton of veggies. Because like, there's 4 recipes here. There's bolognese zucchini boats on top of the first one I mentioned, chicken meatball ratatouille, and easy chicken and vegetable curry. They all have 3 or 5 serves of your veggies for the day, right? So it varies what people tell you how many serves of veg/fruit you should aim for in a day. I personally look for minimum 10, which is 800 grams of raw fruit or veg. So 80 grams per serve is a good way to start to look at it. No, it is attainable for everyone, but people may not see it that way. Look for 5 as a minimum. Like, that means if you're having 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you need 1 at one meal and 2 at the other 2. And then if you go, well, I can just get 2 at every meal, you're getting 6 serves. Great. And you're going to get more fiber by default by that. And again, you guys know how much I'm going to tell you how good fiber is and how important it is specifically for men. Big thing. And as well, I'll just quickly mention, it is men's mental health awareness month in June, and there's not much said about it. So I just want to really point out that is a thing. So physical health is part of your mental health and vice versa. And so if you know you're eating well, you actually I personally tend to feel better emotionally. So I just thought I'd chuck that in as a side note. But yeah, as Ness said, I didn't actually notice the name of the segment. I just was flicking at the recipes, full of veg. So I think super useful, and it's written up by a dietitian as well, or a nutritionist. She's a dietitian.
Yeah, she's got a couple of segments now, I think, consistently within the magazine, and you can kind of tell when her content is actually, from all intents and purposes, is really good.
Julia Peruzov, she's Cole's dietitian, is what she's listed as. So like, honestly, these are recipes that I really think generally are very, very healthy. She's a dietitian, fine, I know, but sometimes they don't necessarily put out recipes that are all that healthy when they're in advertised magazines.
Yes. Or the dietitian recipes don't often sound as exciting.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think is the issue that a lot of people have, is that, you get, it's a pretty substantial magazine in terms of like how many pages there are in it.
Recipes. It's not just pages.
Exactly.
There's a lot of recipes in there. And again, like, I have my issues with big supermarkets, so I'm not sitting here like, this is not paid by Coles or Woolworths or Jamie Oliver or anyone. We're just pointing out this is a great free resource, and it's usually quite stacked with lots of recipes.
And I think it's worth utilizing things like this. And I really think that having a diverse repertoire of food is really important, not only because you're going to get bored with the food that you cook and you can kind of cook it to death essentially, and then you end up hating that meal for forever. But you talked about gut biodiversity and mental health. They're so linked. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because the better diversity that you get, the more fiber that you have, the more vegetables that you're eating, the better you will feel. We've talked about it before. If you're on a low fiber diet at the moment, don't go ahead and just start adding beans to everything in an entire week, because you'll probably not feel great.
Block up and
Yeah.
fart
Yeah.
heaps, and you're not going to be liked at work if you're in the office.
So do it gradually, find a meal to add in each week where you can add more veg.
A tiny bit in
Yeah.
for the day every day. So even if it means so if you're eating say 2 or 3 serves of veg a day, if you go up to 4, you're by default adding a little bit more fiber, and then you can aim for 5 and 6, and if you want to go higher, go for it. Like I said, because 8 to 10 is a lot more recommendations are coming out around that from different medical resources around the world. I think in Australia it is 5.
It's 5, but yeah, I think it's 5 veg, 2 or 3 fruit or whatever, something like that. Yeah. But I think, I mean, when we've bumped up to 8 or 10 of veg, I definitely noticed the difference, and it's significantly better. It's significantly better. He's laughing because he keeps telling me to do it, and I've finally listened. Okay, everybody. All right. Any last advice or words that you want to give about people utilizing cookbooks or free resources with lots of recipes and stuff in there?
Don't be afraid if they don't have macros in there. Again, you can kind of pick and choose if you really want to track that kind of stuff. I always just talk about macros because it's something that I've used for a long time and I find very useful. But most recipes aren't going to have macros, and that's okay. And if they're on the internet too, they're just using a random calculator that they plug it into, and they're not fact checking it probably. But that's just to note. If you get macros of the recipe, they're not always accurate, and it's not the be all and end all. Like I keep saying, there are times where you should just fucking eat whatever you want for short periods of time. I certainly do it. Ness certainly does it as well. This weekend, we'll probably go out for a meal where we'll eat way too much. I did a couple of Sundays ago too. So, just enjoy the food. And when you're looking at recipes, just look for things that you resonate with. And if it resonates with you, try it, even if it's different. And don't be afraid to try something new, and don't be afraid to fail with cooking. It sucks when you do, and it's fucking annoying, to be honest, especially when you really enjoy food. But I find I learn a lot from it. It's like anything, you learn from failure more than from victory, I think, a lot of the time.
For sure you do. And we've definitely, both of us have definitely had some fun and random failures, like just attempting to try to do things. I have definitely attempted a few Instagram recipes of fritters and things like that, and it's taken me a while to perfect it, but I got really stubborn about these vegetable fritters that I make gluten-free. I wanted to make them high fiber, I wanted to make them high protein, and I figured it out. It took me, I think, a good solid 3 or 4 goes before I actually got to a point where I was happy with it, and now can consistently deliver really good quality fritters.
They're actually delicious too. They're almost like really fat pikelets that are full of veggies and tofu and stuff usually, which, okay, that might not sound that sexy on the outside, but they're really delicious savory meal. They got miso and stuff in them, and then dump a little bit of cheese and other things on top, and they become very, very delicious.
Yeah. So my advice would be, don't give up. Stick with it. Try it. Failure isn't a failure. It's just a learning curve. And enjoy your food, because if you enjoy your food, and if you take your time to enjoy your food rather than sit and rush it all the time, you will notice that getting Uber Eats or Deliveroo or whatever all the time is just lackluster.
And turn off the TV, turn off your screens, just sit and be conscious with your meal. Have a chat to whoever's with you, obviously, but just try and consciously eat your meal, and you actually will enjoy it more. Especially if it's something that you've taken time to cook. It took me a long time to convince Vanessa of that, when I was like, I'm spending an hour and a half in the kitchen making dinner, and then you want to sit there and stare at the TV, and that's all you want to do. And after I've eventually finally talked her into it and she tried it, she actually admitted it was better. So no, honestly, I just think really concentrate on your food. And if it's a social occasion, concentrate on the social side of it as well. But if you're just eating at home, even by yourself, just try and concentrate on the food. Put your phone away from you, and you will generally enjoy it more. I'm still guilty of picking up my phone or putting on the TV sometimes. Sometimes I think, whatever, once in a while is okay, and then other times I get my phone, I put it on flight mode, and I throw it over on the couch, and then I'm like, okay, can't get it now. So, but no, I just think just be prepared to try things, and you don't have to follow a recipe exactly to a T. Just enjoy it, enjoy the food, enjoy the process of cooking. Like anything, if you hate the process, you're probably not going to enjoy the end result as much.
Any questions? Hit us up. Thanks for listening.